Hello, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my very new and young channel, and my very humble amount of subscribers and new people that are coming aboard. I'm seeing on a daily basis, and let me tell you why I'm here today. I had one of my videos concerning Eugenia Cooney, and talking a little bit about my own experience with anorexia nervosa type 2. Absolutely kind of triggered some conversation in the comments that I wanted to respond to, and promised that I would respond to, with one commentator in particular, Leland Squirrels. The comments are there for everybody to see, and I want to address you in the utmost respectful and kindest way, because let me tell you, girl, I felt you. Some of it pertained to the actual video, some of it did not. I'm really trying to get this thing a little bit steady here, so bear with me. There, thank you. Might do it. I'm also going to put some my much needed makeup on while I'm doing this, and no disrespect intended, because Miss Leland had some very valid responses that were both direct and very easy to read between the lines. So I think it may have triggered some serious concerns that I wanted to clarify, although, you know, the statements were beautifully made in a few other comments. The first thing she said, now keep in mind, this is in response to a video that I had uploaded about Eugenia Cooney, that was basically saying, you know, kind of leave her alone, as I was talking a little bit about my own experience with having anorexia nervosa type 2, having absolutely overcome that, and what I went through. And I think the point I was trying to get across is all the hate and vitriol against her, number one, isn't helping her for those that clearly are concerned about her genuinely and want to do something. For those that are coming at her in such a vicious and horrible way, and for all the people in between that are merely using her like she was a biology experiment, and for people that had concerns as to how and if and how, I should say, she's affecting the younger generations. Okay, before I get into Leland's comments, let me just throw in a reminder of the Kardashians. They're kind of becoming more and more obscure now, but nonetheless, they've had decades of impact on women and standards of beauty. And if you look throughout centuries and centuries, since they could write on walls and caves, and hieroglyphics came into existence, you can see a pattern that is definitely connected to women since the dawn of man. You know, and that the Egyptian era was the tall and slender and big-eyed, more petite expectations. That's what they consider beautiful, you know. And then we have other cultures, I'm talking centuries and centuries and centuries ago, where a bit of a swell in the belly is what they would call it, a more voluptuous rounded figure was considered beautiful. The interesting thing about it is, obviously these depictions were loaded up by men and their opinions of what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable for standards of beauty. I don't even know if they had anything like anorexia nervosa back then. I think it's a social disorder that developed throughout the centuries, and mostly and large in part due to some childhood traumas for women. Now, men are not immune to this by any stretch of the imagination, but it is predominantly women who suffer, and it is women who have that higher pressure and higher expectations and can never quite fulfill the social expectations of what we're supposed to look like. One way or another, one trend or another, we fall short. Just sometimes a hair short, and sometimes way, way off from these sometimes female imposed standards. Now, I think after the Me Too movement, we were starting to make some progress, and that we weren't backing down. We demanded to be heard, and the Harvey Weinstein thing, all that kind of started bringing things to light. Well, thank you, Amber Heard, for setting that back about 2 decades. Because there are women, unfortunately, that had the limelight, the spotlight, and the platform to basically ruin that. I think, the women, like Rose Gowen is like the women that used it appropriately, that gave other women the courage to speak up, was valid and legitimate, and it also triggered off something, unfortunately, in some women to abuse that newfound power and voice that we had acquired, and coming forward, and let's face it, and coming forward and going after sports players, millionaires, billionaires, other men in power as a forms and means of getting money, and there's just no way to determine in all cases what's true and what's not. So I really stay with the school of thought. Listen, assume that it's true, assume that it's real, because women who do that, women who cry the R word, who cry the SA word, and things of that nature, what a slap in the face. If you're lying, what a slap in the face and gut-wrenching insult to the women who have actually experienced that. And what you set back, what you take away from us, mental illness has got to be a given with bitches that do that kind of thing. But it's really not hard to prove when it's not true. And they also seem to start making it a little bit easier for women to come forward, protecting any type of lifestyle they had outside of that particular instance where they were indeed abused, R-worded, any of those types of situations. Every sexual encounter, personality, even sex workers themselves, all came into account inappropriately in some cases. And then you have women who honestly do take advantage of that immediate sense of, we've got to believe you. I mean, much like a child, if a child is displaying or even speaking forms of CA, you have to believe it. You see something, say something. I will stand by that for life. Despite letting a lot of things slide in my own life for reasons that'll be another conversation. But right now, let's get down to some of the things. So I'm throwing on some makeup with no disrespect or casualizing in any way, shape, or form anything that Miss Leland Squirrels had to say in response to that video. Oh my gosh, this camera. Thank you. Because it was pretty valid. It was pretty valid. And, I actually have been a victim. I hate to even use that word on myself. I refuse to allow myself to be labeled that, because it's really what somebody else did, and they should have the label, not me, not you. But let's get into a little bit what she said. And again, let's keep in mind, this was in response to Eugenia Cooney, why I felt we should just kind of let her be, having had anorexia nervosa. Some commentators that also have it or have had it think it's something that will be with them for life. I personally disagree with that. I do agree with one commentator who said it's of the demonic. and that she had since become a Christian. That even intensifies it more for me, that it's not going to be with you for life. I have not been active in that disorder for many, many years, for a number of reasons, but this isn't about me right now. This is about what it raised up in Miss Leland's comment. The first thing she says is, ask yourself, why did Jeffree Star do it? And how was he able to sell those pallets to absolutely everyone and anyone, laying down in the desert bare bottom like that? Okay, I didn't see that particular video, but what I have seen of Jeffree Star, I believe it. Okay, and I'm just going to be real with you and be honest the way that I see it. Let me make the disclaimer right now. I'm not a professional. I'm not a therapist. I think everybody's healing journey is a very personal thing, and it happens in stages and phases. The only thing I think I have to offer is perhaps being, well, I was going to say a little, but it's really a lot older than my favorite commentators and the commentators that I'm subscribed to and listen to, that are just bright, beautiful, sometimes very, very funny women. And I will say, on average, without knowing their exact age, I probably have a good 30 years on that. So I do have a little bit of wisdom. You can't walk away from all that life experience and really having been in it well into my 50s before things really started coming to the light. And prior to my 50s, I knew who God was. You know, I had faith. I'm a conservative Christian. You want to unsubscribe or bounce off my channel right here and now, go right ahead. But those are the views that will be discussed. My whole intent of this channel was to show and prove in some way that we can hold and onto and honor our conservativeness and our Christianity, and still meet somewhere in the middle with some of the more extreme left liberal views. There's a happy place. There's a happy medium. There is a balance. One positive thing that my mother did instill in me is moderation and balance is key to everything. Sometimes when it came to taking care of me, she wasn't quite that moderate or balanced about it. But again, another conversation. Okay, so Miss Leland asks about Jeffree Star and how he was able to sell those pallets. When apparently she saw a video, I'm assuming, of him laying bare bottom, and Jeffree Star's he's off the hook. That's his brand. That's his brand. He's highly, not saying it's appropriate, it's okay, and that it's good, and it's not triggering for some. But this is the beauty of YouTube. You can kind of just scroll on and choose not to watch it if you've already seen offensive content by a person. Okay, anorexia, and this goes for Eugenia too. Anorexia nervosa is not contagious. It's not contagious. There is nobody that's going to, it's the same thing as just saying anyone that watched the Kardashians obtained a mental disorder. Because they could not keep up with that standard of beauty, which was their brand for decades. Women especially are now realizing some of the falsehoods behind that, and they're becoming more and more obscure. That's just the way that it is. But depending if you have anorexia nervosa or you're struggling with childhood traumas, it might be best not to watch that, especially if you know it and you're aware of it. And I realize younger teenage, maybe in your 20s, adulthood isn't determined by 18. I think it's going to be different for everybody. But nonetheless, I in no way, shape, or form expressed any approval. This is a new bottle. I cannot get it. Any approval. I've seen Jeffree's old videos. I've seen him off the chart. He too talks about that. And, you know, it does not negate the fact that fair and square, he built an empire. He has a product that's marketable, that's sellable, that he created. I do believe he's taken some honor, and absolutely, it's obvious you have to put a lot of work into that. This is just how I feel, Leland. With no offense to you, and I'm not negating from anything that you said. Obviously, Jeffree seems to be some type of a trigger. Has posted very offensive, inappropriate, over-sexualized videos in the past. Be that as it may, I don't think it relates to Eugenia. I just don't see how it does, and I'm open to hearing more comment on that. He just doesn't need Eugenia to sell his palettes. I honestly, my gut, at 61, if that makes any difference, is she actually really just liked his makeup and obviously likes him. You know, it's pretty apparent. She's been very sheltered, very secluded, probably quite deliberately. And Jeffree reached out to her. And I don't believe that was solely for the, oh, come on, solely for the reason of using Eugenia somehow to sell his palettes. He would have sold them out at that rate, as well as Shane Dawson, with or without Eugenia. She just happens to have very beautiful eyes. That's her brand. Makeup and beauty. Is this some bullshit and gaslighting going on there? Probably. Do I think she's doing it very deliberately in a calculated way, trying to draw others into her disease? I know that she's not. How do I know? Because I've had it myself, and I know that's not how it works. It's not contagious. You know, especially type 2, but even with type 1, which is more severe. You're living, breathing, walking, sleeping, not eating, doing everything you do in that disease. Do I think it's 100% phony, this persona that she puts out about being very loving? Oh, she's definitely guilty of vagueness. I'll give her that. She's very, very vague. She's very, very evasive, because that's what the disease does. If you're a drug addict, you want to get on a live stream, which may be your income source, and talk about your drug abuse. You know, show that, discuss it, address every comment. No, you're probably going to scroll right by it. So my suggestion would be for anyone, and I have a feeling, Leland, it's your personal experiences that triggered a lot of this up for you, which are very valid and very real. And let me tell you, there's a lot of hope and healing and love, and you deserve to have it, even from your husband, who you keep up all night with. I don't mean to make that in air quotes sarcastically, who you keep up all night, or you're concerned about keeping up all night because of your night terrors, and just waking up in a panic and kind of lashing around, which was mentioned in your comments. This man, I'm assuming, knew what had happened to you before he married you. As you stated, he gets up and has to go to work every day. If he didn't care about you, if he didn't really love you, if this was ruining his life, you'd know about it by now, honey. I don't say honey in a condescending way. It's just kind of the way we were raised and what we call everybody, especially if we have a warmth or a compassionate towards them. It sounds to me like you have a very wonderful husband, who is determined to stick by you and is very aware of what you suffered unfairly and justly, like so many of us. But let me go on to some of the other comments that you made. The nightmares never stop. If maybe Frankie possibly knows what I went through, I can't be the only one. The confusion is going to cause younger siblings across the nation to be preyed upon by older relatives that just want to know if they look the same and whether or not it makes them feel any type of way about it. I was able to, read between the lines, and obviously you have a huge heart and a huge concern and a protective instinct for what were your younger siblings, but this is applicable in any abuse type of situation. Whether you're the younger sibling and it's happening to an older sibling, whether it's happening to a friend or a classmate or whatever the situation might be, you're right. It is a nightmare in and of itself. It's wrong, it's vile and disgusting, and no child should ever have to endure that. The truth of the matter is, we live in a fallen world, and I believe every single one of us were born intentionally. We were fearfully and wonderfully knitted in our mother's womb. God had a plan and a purpose for our lives before conception even. Believe me, I understand it doesn't always look that way. We live in a very unfair, unjust world that isn't necessarily the way God wanted it to be. And although he had control over that, and he could have kept it all in the garden, he could just wipe these predators off the earth, protect every single child. Let me tell you, they are protected. If there's one thing I remember as a little tiny girl, when the abuse first started, before I had even remember or recall ever even setting foot in the church that I grew up with, was a sense of, let's call it Jesus, angels, a sense of something around me that later, when I was taken to church the few times growing up, I realized was not the same power of protection and love that I was hearing about in a very cold and scary church to me as a young child. Kind of had to go into confession at 8 years old, and I honestly couldn't recall any sins that I had made other than being born, which I guess is a sin according to that, and I actually made stuff up in the confessional and then had to do 100 Our Fathers and 50 Hail Marys for stuff I didn't even do, with a very not warm, not compassionate priest. Now, let me just say, I know the Catholic Church has come a long way, and things are very different since the exposure of the rape situation. I am so sorry about this camera. I'm trying to hold it still and do my makeup at the same time. But we learned that's the fact of the matter, is that this is happening all day, every day, to God knows the numbers. It's not fair. It's disgusting. It's vile. And I am so sorry that you ever had to experience anything like this. And if you see and you're going through YouTube or watching a movie or out with friends that are triggering this, the only thing that tells me, which is totally beneficial for you, I hope, I pray, is that you have some more processing to do. Now, unfortunately, nowadays, it's very difficult to find appropriate therapy, meaning I was kind of blessed, like in my early 20s. I had drug problems as an adolescent, got cleaned up in my early 20s, and at that time, cognitive, sincere, highly credited, degreed therapists were available. There were group therapies available. No drugs, no psychiatrists, no medication involved. Just hardcore one-on-one or group of like women who had similar experiences, you could get real help. And I was able to benefit that for over a decade, before my own children came along. I realize it's a lot more difficult today. It's not affordable. Um, if you're lucky enough to even have insurance that covers it, it's usually only a small portion. I get that all that's real. I'm hoping, praying, changing that things might be a little easier in 25. I think if you saw the debate the other night, you kind of know. It's just not going to work, people. But in any event, you're not alone. You're not alone. And if this, and this was very, like, light. It was not a deep dive into Eugenia or Jeffree. And if it triggered you to this point, I'm not saying, well, that's your problem and there's something wrong with you. I'm saying this is your opportunity to rise up, and to say, hey, wait a minute, the mention of this name, and to see the kind of heart that you really have. Obviously, you have valid, real, compassionate, concern, love. You want the world to be a better place. You want more protection for your siblings and other kids coming up behind you. And that's a noble, wonderful, beautiful thing that is within you. That's the key. That's the key that you hold that will unlock your power that you do have. I don't know if you're a believer or not, but especially within Christ, to heal these traumas and turn your tragedies into your testimony and touch Lord knows how many. But the important thing is, even if it's just one, and you're one, you matter and you count. And even if it just turns your life around, it's worth it. It's worth it. So I appreciate your honesty, on or off topic, whatever brought up in you. Obviously, you're ready. You're ready. It rose up in you. I'm going to be bold enough to say, to be released, healed, and then reached out to others, which is what I want this whole channel to be about. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't have those credentials. I don't have those degrees. I have experience. And I'm going to go on the ledge here to say the benefit and the wisdom of age. As I said, I'm a good 30 years older than my most respected content creators that I am subscribed to and that I love, to name a few so you know a little bit more about who I am. I love Blair White, a transgendered woman, transgendered from man to woman, grounded, funny, down to earth, very protective of children and children's right, very able and capable to call out the BS, while still defending her community, or supporting her community, her real community, people who really suffer gender dysphoria. Swoop, love me some Swoop. Smart, bright, vivacious, has also gone through horrific abuse and trauma in her life, which will, Miss Leland, get stored up in your body to a point of physical sickness and pain if left unchecked. Let me go on to read what you wrote. Although my monster's multiple offenses has landed him on a tier 3 for life, I still don't feel as though I have any compensation for my uncontrollable nightmares that pop up more often than I care to admit. This really deserves a part 2, and I don't want, we're already going into almost 30 minutes of this. I'm going to stop here, Miss Leland, everybody, and wrap this up. because it is worthy to be heard, worthy to be discussed, worthy to be commented on. Please do. Please do. Your true heart, good, bad, negative, whatever. I'm going to wrap it up right here. And as I promised, before 3 p.m. today, which is Wednesday, July 3rd, I'll continue and hopefully address this, and hopefully we can all share together in some healing, in some faith, in some hope, and most importantly, in a whole lot of love. Thank you to my small little group that's here. I'm trying to deliver, and hope I'm serving you well. Have a blessed day.